Elevated through inspiration, killing everything, or simply etiquette, is Jeff Ciocon's warcry and the name of his dope high-end Jersey City barbershop. Jeff is a natural-born entrepreneur who not only dreams, but executes at the highest level possible. His ability to be his own boss is something many desire, but can't emulate. Through 20 years of barbering, a deep love for hip-hop culture, and meticulous planning, Etiquette was born. Jeff has a desire to dominate the men's grooming industry through culture and unrelenting drive. This is his story.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thanks for having me. My name's Jeff Ciocon. Born in New York, raised in Jersey, 33 years old, and I've been cutting hair for over 20 years now. It started off as a hobby. For me, just cutting hair was like that fifth element of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It was something that you just did to keep your homies fresh, and for me, the biggest reason of getting into it was just to give myself a haircut and feeling like I couldn't go to the barbershop all the time because I didn't have the money for it. So it was just something that I knew I could do, and I challenged myself to learn just for the sake of that fresh cut, that fresh feeling, and deciding to take it into a career kind of just happened naturally over the course of over a decade of just trying different things in the workforce, and 2008, we hit the recession. I was in motorcycle sales. So it was a luxury kind of bought purchase on its own. And being that, people were not getting loans and scared about where the money's gonna go, it was time for me to start pursuing something that what I felt was recession proof. And in this industry, it really is, because you're always going to care about how you look and how the society perceives you, whether you got to get a job or whether you already have a good paying job. So as soon as I started honing in on that, I started carving out this path for myself, and it took me a lot of places.
Okay, so where was the first place that you actually cut hair then? After you made that decision, like, okay, this is going to be the profession for me. This is what I'm gonna be doing.
When I decided in 2008 that barbering was going to be the thing I would focus all my attention to, I already had the vision that I was going to be cutting hair in Manhattan. What was important for me was to gain all the expertise and the experience so that I could step foot into that arena and perform as a top barber. So throughout Central Jersey, South Jersey, I did this tour of working at a lot of different barbershops for a period of time. And I would only work at these shops up until I felt like I had mastered the specific ethnic type that the shop had. In Jersey, a lot of barbershops, there's Dominican barbershop, they're gonna cut mostly Hispanic people. You got black barbershops, they're cutting black hair. Italian barbershops or white barbershops are appealing to white people. I cut at a Pakistani barbershop, it's called an all Indian hair. Cutting an Asian barbershop just to cut all Asian hair, because I think the biggest downfall for a lot of barbers when they want to be great is that they're not exposed to all the different hair types and the hair textures, so they could be really strong and dominant in one demographic or one style or one type of hair, and then a scissor cut comes in, for example, and they're lost. So it was really important for me to hone my skills over the course of probably maybe 2 years, working at half a dozen shops, but just different style shops, and just honing my skills so that the minute that I knew I was ready, I can go into the city and submit my resumes and show them what I can do.
Do you recommend anyone who wants to be a barber to actually do that same thing? It seems pretty grueling to actually go through these different barber shops and then picking up that skill set, but it seems essential.
I think today's shop is a little bit different because in major metropolitan areas there is such a wide diversity of people. So I do recommend people doing whatever means necessary to get trained up on the different elements of barbering, because it may not only happen from one shop, you know, and in this profession, I don't believe there's any right or wrong way to do it. I think it's up to the individual, and according to how hard you push yourself, you know, I don't compete with anybody, you know, except for myself. You know, I'm looking at my work and saying, what do I need to improve upon with any haircut that I get? Thankfully, I've gotten to this place where I feel at my pinnacle when it comes to cutting, and that's really what led me into now opening businesses and employing people and trying to teach them what I know. So for the fortunate people that do get to work under me, yeah, they're gonna learn a lot of stuff because I do have a lot of information to share. And you know, for me, that's the only way I can continue to be involved and be excited about, you know, what I'm doing. Like I said before, I've done so many things, but I've gotten bored with them. In men's grooming, there's so many elements and so many different avenues that you can go down and you can explore, that you're continually challenging yourself. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
Definitely. So I want to get into your shop, but I'm going to touch on it a little later. But so you just get to Manhattan. Where's your first stop?
So I knew I wanted to be in Manhattan. There was a shop called FSC Barber. And through all my own research, you know, these guys did the most marketing. You know, they had a cool lifestyle shop in the sense that FSC Barbershop was a barbershop that was created for the brand Freeman Sporting Club, which is a men's apparel company, all made in the USA. So they sold, you know, high-end men's apparel, and they started this barbershop, and that was just like a cool environment to be around, you know. However, they didn't respond to my resume and me reaching out for a little while, so I started off at this barbershop called Mustache Tonsorial. And it was cool, you know. At that time, the culture of the barbershop in Manhattan was going back to the traditional roots of barbering. You know, back then, the vintage style was really big, and this reemergence of the traditional American barbershop was really hitting as a trend. So these shops that were kind of capitalizing on that trend was where I wanted to position myself. I only worked with Mustache Tonsorial for maybe 2-3 weeks.
Did you feel like you fit in there, or
I did?
That? Okay.
But at the time, I left there because FSC had called me, and they said, "Hey, you know, sorry it took so long to get back to you. We'd like to schedule a test cut." As soon as they called me, I knew I was going to get that job. All I had to do was show face and do what I do. So that day, it was interesting. I was supposed to work at Mustache, and I didn't. Since I was so new, I didn't want to call out.
Yeah.
So I just didn't show up. And,
you'd be surprised that happens often.
You know, no call, no show, knowing that, you know what, I have this other opportunity, and sure enough, as soon as I finished my test cut, you know, they offered me the position. And that's the company I stayed with in the entirety of the time that I worked in Manhattan.
So you left in 2016, and that's when you that's when you started Etiquette, pretty much, or started the process of opening Etiquette.
Yeah. So actually, the process for starting Etiquette started years prior.
Did you, just to back up, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or did that just come to you?
No, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to work for myself. I was always the guy that when I worked for an employer, I would gravitate towards the owner or the manager. You know, I could have coworkers and employees that are doing the same job as me, but I always understood the value of paying attention to the higher ups. And every time I worked for a company, a small business, whatever it was, and I would see the owner and I'd see the car that he was driving, or the knot in his pocket, it always appealed to me. So I knew that if I was going to do barbering, I wouldn't only just be a barber. You know, cutting hair is something I've done since I was a kid. But how do you progress and how do you step it up every year that you're doing it? So ultimately, I knew that what I was in for was to be a barberpreneur.
Okay.
I guess is what you could say. immediately after actually starting working in Manhattan, I opened my first shop. So I opened my first shop in 2012. And for me, it was just proof of concept. It was my first experience kind of opening a shop. So
In Manhattan?
No, I opened my shop in Jersey.
Okay, Jersey, okay.
In Jersey, it was in Carteret.
Okay.
I wanted to try my hand at business ownership, but I also didn't want to walk away from the opportunity in Manhattan. So what I did was I opened a shop, and I continued to work full-time in Manhattan, and I staffed this up, and I worked part-time at this my own shop, but it was really about running it as an owner, and setting in place policies and setting in place the culture and the vibes, but allowing my guys to grow that shop, using the influence that I had in higher end barbershops. So what essentially we did is we brought the high end Manhattan barbershop culture into Central Jersey, and ever since we first opened that shop, we've won the award for the best barbershop in that city for the last 5 consecutive years. So for me, that was proof of concept. I was like, okay, I know how to establish, build, and market and grow a barbershop from 0 customers to the busiest shop in the city. I always knew after that shop was started that, all right, it's time to do another one, but on a bigger scale.
So do you still have that shop today? Or?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I knew the next one was coming, it was how do we elevate from the first one that we did, and it was just execute on the proof of concept, but do it stronger and bigger and better. So coming into Etiquette was a process that was planned for 3 years before we even found a location. I'm a planner, I'm a dreamer. I have visions, and for me, the way I've always accomplished success in my life was just visualizing that end goal, reverse engineering it to where you are today, and figuring out those steps that you got to take so that at some point you wake up in the future and then that is your reality. Etiquette, when I was creating this shop, we originally looked at Manhattan. We were looking at Manhattan, that's where I work, that's where all my clients are, that's where a big network of mine exists. So, we ran into every possible wall. People didn't want to give us space, they didn't take us seriously. And of course, real estate is really expensive. So you're looking at spaces that are 800 square foot, $15,000 a month. And then of course, the landscape in Manhattan, there's so much stuff going on. So being able to draw people to your brand new business with your overhead so high is certainly very risky. And that was part of the process for me, was like recognizing what's realistic and what I can take on and what's just a little bit too much I'm not ready for. So after, a year or so of looking at spaces and meeting with potential partners, I decided it wasn't gonna happen, and it was time to start looking at alternative neighborhoods. Very recently, Jersey City has really, grown in leaps and bounds, and it's become such a great option for, the New York commuter that wants to get close to the city, but, also wants to save a little bit, not throw it all away on the rent or the lifestyle of New York City. And I was reluctant to come into Jersey City early. I've lived out in Jersey City for the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, okay, so you can do it.
But I wasn't sure that Jersey City, the neighborhood, was quite ready for the level of barbering and the level of establishment that I was gonna do in the barber game. So I watched the neighborhood, I watched businesses come and go. There was high turnover downtown for a while, because although it was such a convenient area, there wasn't necessarily that many people yet. And then almost it seems like overnight, a couple years ago, when they closed down the pedestrian walkway on Newark permanently, I really saw a shift in the activity, just from people wanting to be out all the time.
New buildings going up as well.
New buildings going up, new developments. So I spent about another year and a half in Jersey City just looking for real estate. And it was difficult. I even had a friend of mine who works in real estate, and he brought it upon his office. Hey, my friend's looking for retail space in downtown Jersey City. And they laughed at him. They're like, ha ha ha, good luck. Because the demand for building new business in the neighborhood was so high, and there's so many entrepreneurs and businesses and restaurants that are trying to come in, that it makes it so competitive, and you really have to know people to find good space, because a lot of times stuff trades hands even before it goes on the market, because people know people. So for me, literally for a year and a half, I was on my skateboard and I was just skating up and down these blocks and just seeing like what was out here, who was doing well, who maybe wasn't doing well, with the ultimate goal of getting closest to the proximity of the Grove Street path train and that pedestrian walkway. We looked and, we put in offers for several places. The building next to Talday, which is now Doche, it's a Korean restaurant. We looked over there. We were looking at, on Jersey and Columbus, there was a new development that went up over there.
Were you ever discouraged during your search?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because every time you find a place that might be perfect, so you set it up in your head like this is what's gonna happen and this is what I want, and oh, it's so great. You do all the research and you start crunching the numbers, you start making blueprints, and at the end of the day, if the agreement doesn't happen between the owner and me, then, or if he wants to go with somebody else, that's their decision. So that happened to us a couple of times when we lost the space simply from the owner choosing, somebody else to get in there.
So even for an owner, when they're thinking about bringing somebody into their space, they're considering, do I want a barbershop here, or do I actually want a restaurant, or things like that? Will this actually bring more people to Jersey City? So do you ever have to actually convince somebody this is needed?
I feel like a lot of people think that barbershops are like a dime a dozen, and in Jersey City specifically, there are a lot of barbershops. What I came to create was a barbershop for this new community. For the people that are coming here that haven't been born and bred in Jersey City, that don't know where to go, I wanted to give them that convenient location, close to where they live, close to where they shop, close to where they eat. And it was difficult mainly because the spaces that were available were either too big or they were too small. So it was finding something that fit our purpose. So through this discouragement and through not finding this space right away, it led me to find the space that I'm currently in. And like I said, I was just walking around every day or skating around looking for spaces, and one day, it was in fall 2016, I was with my son and my girlfriend, and we just happened to walk right past the storefront. And I had them on my radar before because I saw these guys go up. They were a computer repair store. In 2016, if you're gonna be a PC repair store and have a storefront for that, you're not gonna do well. I'm sorry that nobody told these guys that their business model does not work. And as soon as the eviction notice was posted on the door is when I pounced, and they still had stuff in the storefront. And I reached out to my real estate friend. I said, find the owner of this building, let me get his number. And at that point, I harassed him. And at first he didn't want me in there because of the cost of real estate in downtown Jersey City and the pricing. He wasn't sure that a barbershop would do enough to pay his rent. But he also didn't know what my vision was, and he didn't know exactly what my background was. So after, a month or two of convincing him, and he asked for a lot of information, I was happy to give it up, because I knew exactly what we came here to do, and I knew the team that I had with me would be able to execute on what we came out here to do. So sure enough, we ended up getting that space, and we had these projections. Obviously, when you start a business, you gotta do your 2-year forecast, break even, low, median, and goal, right? I was very reserved on those projections. And I was really happy to see that as soon as we came into the neighborhood, that the neighborhood embraced us and took us on. The community really appreciated the fact that we came out there, and we were exceeding our minimum expectations, which is great. That's a win. And then just every day that passes with the new customers that are coming in, and with the returning customers that are just reinforcing, their appreciation and support for what we do. It gives me a good sense of security that, we can establish Etiquette to be a dominant player in this landscape.
So what's the culture of Etiquette? Like, can you describe it?
The acronym is elevated through inspiration and killing everything. Etiquette's an awesome word. It describes men's mannerisms. It defines our behavior. It defines how we interact with society. And all of that I hold true to the definition of what my brand is. But personally, in addition to all the basic understandings of etiquette as a word, it's really for us showing that we are cut from a different cloth. We really want to showcase our skills and talents. My team has worked really hard to get to where they're at, and I want to make sure that by choosing to immerse yourself in your passion, you will become better than the average guy. And that's what we really want to bring to the table, is just an elevated standard. What we don't want to compete, we want to dominate. So I'm going to breed this culture of award-winning barbers, celebrity barbers, and guys that have really been in this for a long time, but want to give that to the community as well.
So what do you look for in a barber before you bring them onto your team?
I'm going to look at your portfolio. I'm going to see where you've cut, what you've done, what you've accomplished. Starting off a new business, I need guys like me. I need industry professionals, I need guys with tons of experience, and I need guys that are hungry for more. Where we grow in the future is allowing for training to happen. So I can take the younger generation or the newer guys that are coming into the industry and start to teach them the things that is required to get on a bigger stage. I don't think Etiquette is a typical barbershop.
How do you differ from like traditional ones?
Well, our price point is a lot higher than what an average guy would expect to see in your run-of-the-mill community barbershop. We do get some pushback sometimes when guys walk in and they'll $42 for a haircut. I pay $15 where I go, and that's fine. I don't want to take you outside of your comfort zone, but essentially what you're paying for is the experience and my personal experience. The knowledge that we have, the information that we're willing to share with you, the ability to come to a place and get product recommendations and get stuff that's actually good for your skin and good for your hair, as opposed to this, cheap stuff. And that's really the major differentiator is quality. And anytime, whether it's in clothing, in sneakers, in food, there's always going to be that difference between, your discount and your quality. And for me, it's something that I'm not willing to compromise on. I'm not a discount barber, because I know what I'm worth. And that's kind of the culture that I want to establish at Etiquette, is that, the guy that can afford it, but also the guy that is really concerned about his best look and his best option is gonna come sit in our chair, and gonna come to the barbershop and recognize that he's never had something that we've had to offer previously. And then it's gonna turn him into a customer.
So you mentioned products before as well, and like just knowing like the quality products and whatever you get, at the pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So do you train your barbers in knowing exactly what to recommend to different customers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's like an end-to-end service that you kind of provide here now, right?
Mm-hmm. Every barber every customer that comes in is going to be exposed to what we use on them. So if it's something that we're using in their hair, or for something we're using to shave, we just let them know this is what we're using. And everything that we use in-house as a supply is what's available for sale. So if you like the results of how the blade glides on your face, it's because I've chosen this product and it's a great product, and I've proved it out personally. So I'm always playing around with different products, and always learning about other stuff that's available, just to make sure that I'm going to be able to offer the best quality products to the customer. And we don't hard sell anything in the shop. I'm not pressing merchandise or product down my customer's throat, but we find people enjoy buying it because they find good results in how we use it on them.
So earlier you said that barbering is like the fifth element of hip hop, right? So you've noticed that hip hop, street culture has pretty much become like mainstream. It's very like pop culture now. A lot of brands are trying to like tie themselves to pop culture, which is hip hop, and it doesn't really feel that authentic. So how do you see etiquette remaining authentic to like hip hop and then like street culture as well?
When you walk into etiquette, there's a lot of imagery and pictures on the walls, all paying homage to hip hop. Music, dancing, b-boy culture, and lifestyle. But we do it in a classy kind of way. I wanted everything clean, everything modern, and everything neat. Like I said before, barbering is the fifth element of hip hop because it's swag, it's flavor, it's style, it's all of that. So I always pay homage to that. Whether or not my customer sees that, it doesn't bother me. I feel like I'm just staying true to myself and staying in my lane and giving people a little bit of myself. And I don't want to give them all of me. Sometimes you have to tone it down, but I do want to expose people to what inspired me. Growing up in the 90s, hip hop always had a positive message, and that's what etiquette comes to speak about. It's being better because you know better. It's elevated through inspiration. It's killing everything. It's winning. For etiquette, expanding beyond its local community and becoming recognized as a nationally valued men's lifestyle company is the goal. This year we'll be rolling out some e-commerce, updating our websites, allowing people to access our products and merchandise from anywhere in the world. We know there's a lot of value in the internet and getting that exposure. So we don't want to stay in Jersey City, but we'll be based here. We definitely want to grow, and if that growth takes us into Manhattan or takes us to LA, then the sky's the limit.